Welcome, everyone. It's that time again. It is the monthly webinar at CompanyCam. And we're very excited today to have Catherine Freeman, Senior Business Coach and Director of Operations at Nolan Consulting Group. Uh, Before we get started, I just want to do a couple quick things. Number one, if you're interested in finding out more about just the trades and contracting in general, I encourage you guys to check out the Good Contractor podcast that I co-host with CompanyCam CEO Luke Hansen. It is not a product podcast. It's where we tell the stories of those that are in the trades and those that are contractors. And yeah, the stories behind the professional and the personal life. And it's been a ton of fun. We are 13 episodes in with 14 coming next Monday. So again, the Good Contractor podcast, you can grab it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Secondly, I want to encourage everybody to use the webinar chat. And to get everybody started and get things kind of warmed up, number one, in the to function, it'll say who can see your messages, etc. Make sure that is clicked on everyone and not host and panelists. That way everybody can see it. But go ahead and check in where you are coming in from, city, state, country, etc. We love to see where everyone is coming in from on the webinar. We have Norco, California, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Dayton, Ohio, Washington, D.C., Birmingham, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, St. Louis, Point Pleasant, New Jersey, Durango, Colorado. Catherine, they're coming in so fast I can't read them all,
That's
but
so awesome. All over.
yeah, Cedar Falls, there's the Bronx, Tampa, San Diego, Maryland, North Carolina, British Columbia, Oklahoma, Virginia, Chicago, Colorado Springs. This is awesome. Look at that. Boston, Massachusetts, Kansas, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. This is awesome. We'll give everybody just a minute to dive in. And again, if you're just joining us, number one, make sure that the to in the chat is to everyone so we can all see your questions and dive in and say where you're coming in from. City, state, country, all around the world. Maine, California. Very awesome. Okay, let's get started. Like I said, we have Catherine Shepard here. Um,
Catherine Freeman.
Freeman, so sorry.
That's so
Senior
funny.
business,
We
senior
just
business.
practiced. We practiced it.
We practiced it, and look at that. I don't even know where Shepard came from. You know what? It's because I went to school with the Catherine Shepard when I was in elementary school, and that's why that popped up. Excuse me.
I hope it was a
Uh
good remembering.
it was. It was. I mean, there's
Okay.
no issues. It just popped in my head. But yes, Catherine Freeman, senior business coach, director of operations at Nolan Consulting Group. And last year we were talking safety with you as well. And now we have you back. And I know there's some folks, obviously, they're joining us that weren't here or may have not seen the first one. And I know we don't want to sit too much on that, but I would love to have you introduce yourself and just talk about Nolan and talk about your role and maybe highlight a few things that you highlighted last year and then kind of the differences of what we're going to talk about this year and kind of the level two, so to speak. So I will
Yeah,
turn it over to
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. So thanks very much for having me on. We feel like the relationship that we have with Company Cam is one of our best relationships. And so always happy to help out where we can. And given this particular topic, it is something that I feel very, very passionate about. And, you know, oftentimes the question is asked of me how you sit in an office, you're a coach, what do you have to do with people in the field? And I mean, that's really the point. That's exactly the point that it doesn't matter who you are in an organization or the role that you have in an organization. You have an obligation to make sure that there are safety practices being established and worked in your business. So, as you mentioned, I work for the Nolan Consulting Group. I've been with the organization for about 12 years now. And I am not only a business coach, meaning that I work directly with clients, such as the people who are on the call now, but I'm also the director of operations for our organization. I have some of the same challenges that everybody on the call faces. And so I feel lucky that I'm in this role and I can do both things. Um, what we hit last year was our summit safety certification process, a level one set. And I think, yes, there may be people on the call who sat through that last year. I won't go through too much repetition, but that level one is about building the foundation for a safety program in your organization and what you can do, whether you are a business owner or a field leader or an office leader, what you can do to make sure that you're creating the very foundation for safety in your organization. So it was about meetings and orientation and documenting and where do you have your safety material, who is on your safety meetings, what are your training look like, what's your agenda for training. So it was really basic information. What we've done here is take it to the next level. So I'll run through that because that's important for us. But first, I want to hit a couple of statistics um, and make sure that we're hitting this from a high level because I think that there's nothing more real than what this can do to you in your business. And I've heard countless business owners talk about, the gosh, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done this. If I only had done this, what might be different? And so I think let's hit it from a numbers perspective, right? These are updated from the last time we talked. Last time we talked, we had 2021 data. Now it's 2022 data. There were 2,800,000 plus recordable cases in 2022. That marked a 7.5% increase from the year prior. Imagine that. Imagine closing in on a 10% increase when we know how important safety is, and yet there's still increases. And really, this is all recordable cases. So that includes very simple things like slips, trips, falls. Um, we've heard a lot about some of the southern states and the heat that they have experienced. I think I have a client in Gilbert, Arizona, and I was on a call with them the other day. The 100th straight day of temperatures exceeding 100 degrees. So overexertion is a real issue for them. And what is it that you can do to make sure that you're not contributing to this particular number? Let's look at this next number here. This is fatal work-related injuries, fatal. So this also saw an increase from 2021 to 2022, an increase of 5.7%. Imagine if you were the business owner of one of those people and you had to go to that person's family and say, something happened, maybe something that could have been avoided, but something happened and this is the future that we're dealing with. Last number, just to bring it home in terms of dollars, this has cost businesses, families, the industries that we work with $730 billion. $730 billion. That's a lot of money. And maybe that number is even too big to comprehend, right? Maybe once you start putting a B on things, right? That's like I don't know how big that number is. I don't even know if I know how many zeros that is. But that's what it's costing these unintended accidents. That's what it's costing us in the United States alone. So we want to make sure that we're attentive to that and the small parts that we can do to ensure that this is not something that increases when we start to look at the 2023 numbers. I'm just going to read something here because I think back to where I started, which is, whose job is it anyways? And, why is it that I am so passionate as a business coach, not even in the trenches with the people who might be encountering these things that we're going to talk about? And in my opinion, it is everybody's job. And so I'm just going to read this here. This is Charles Swindoll wrote, there was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought that anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. And I really, I can't, I can't help but think that there's no other better way to characterize safety. It's somebody else's job. Somebody else has to be watching it. I'm too busy doing, I'm too busy moving ladders. I'm too busy staging my job. I'm too busy making sure that I've got the right materials on the job site. I'm too busy in production. I'm just too busy putting paint on the walls or tapping down the roof or digging a hole for the plant. I don't have time. Um, but it's everybody's job. It's everybody's job and everybody needs to be focused on it. Um, when we look at that and we think about our summit certification, we feel pretty strongly. In fact, we feel so strongly that we want to make sure that everybody who belongs to our summit group, our summit group, by the way, is a smaller peer group within the Nolan Consulting that represents people who come together and who share best practices, who are as invested in the growth of their business and their teams as their peers. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody in the organization got certified. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to run through all of our summit members and get them safety certified. That was what we talked about last year was the level one, that groundwork. It's about very basic practices, just things that anybody who has a business should be doing. Very simple, basic information. Um, and then we realized that there's level two. So level one, we've got underway. Level two really is about making sure that the culture is alive, that it is more than just the paperwork piece of it, right? I mean, everybody has an OSHA logs. They know that they need to keep accurate records. My dream would be to hear that every business who's on this phone call actually has a safety committee and is regularly having safety meetings. And of course, everybody is doing safety huddles. But it's more, that level two is more about how do we see that in action and are we actually watching for it? So this is our level one and level two certifications. Level two is about an in-person audit. We're currently hiring a safety expert that would be traveling to our clients and doing this safety audit. It's more than just going onto job sites and making sure that they're appropriately stacking ladders. It is about seeing and having conversations with the team. It's about making sure that when we say that there is a return to work program, that we're having a conversation with somebody who maybe has gone through that. Or if we're highlighting a stop work authority, that we're seeing the evidence of the celebrations that we would typically recommend are going around it. So it is a little more elevated. It is something that we expect to be in person. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be plenty of interaction with us and our team when we do this. And there's real opportunity for you to interact with anybody on our team because we got to get you prepped before somebody comes out there. But for businesses who are on this phone call, I mean, it's not limited to just our summit members. I mean, these are things that we would actively encourage you to be thinking about in your business because we know it's going to make it safer and we know that you're going to have a better opportunity to make sure that your employees get home safely at the end of the day. So I want to just hit a couple of things here. Like our level one certification process, there are 8 steps to get certified. These are the criteria here on the screen. I'm going to run through just a couple of them because I feel pretty strongly that we want to make sure that you could do this on your own in your business. outside of our certification. Like I said, we feel really strongly about it. And if you want, we've got some templates and some tools that we could share if you wanted to reach out to us, or you could reach out to CompanyCam and we could coordinate with them. Um, for example, our return to work program. Um, Returning to work is about making sure prior to somebody's accident that you have a real clear process for bringing them back to work. Um, I think we know as business owners that if somebody is given the opportunity to sit on the couch and watch daytime television, they're going to do that. And so, right, I love to do that all day long. Actually, I probably wouldn't, but
I was gonna say I'd get too antsy for that, but maybe
I
some
know,
people are different.
right? And maybe there are some people out there. Um, but there's a way to bring people back and back into the organization and get things done that maybe you're not getting done, that both honors the injury that they may have sustained, but also get some work out of them. So we want to make sure that you've established a return to work program. As I said, do it before incidences occurred. Have it written up. Uh, Go and take a look at some of your job descriptions. Take a look at what your average field employee, who they might be, and come up with some tasks that they could help with. Whether it's assisting with calling clients and helping to getting them scheduled, or maybe it's speaking with vendors and coordinating delivery of materials. Could be that, you might need to have some work done in the shop. And if it's a matter of keeping somebody off of their feet most of the day, you could have them be doing stuff in your shop some of the day, and some of the day maybe helping out in the office. Put some thought into it though before an accident occurs so you're not reacting. Um, the other thing I would also really strongly encourage everyone to do is make sure that you've got a light duty component to everybody's job description. This might have more of an impact for businesses that are larger, have very specific, maybe requirements in the industrial world. Um, Meaning that you need to be very careful about how you are structuring their time if they're on light duty. But nonetheless, consider adding that as a clause. Like, if light duty is necessary in for this person, some of the tasks might include, but are not limited to, filing, electronic filing. We're looking at spreadsheets, talking with customers. You can come up with a list. Um, what we recognize though is that it does have to be meaningful work. I am not talking about busy work here. I do not want somebody shuffling papers from one side of the desk to the other side of the desk, or to have them coming in and sitting blankly looking at a screen. It really does need to be meaningful. And so having put some thought into it ahead of time prevents you from just putting somebody into that category, because then you're going to create resentment. You're going to create the feeling like, well, I could be at home and sitting still, instead of sitting still in the office, and why are they dragging me in? So just really want to make sure that we are aware of what a return program would look like. Um, Something that also, depending upon your industry, is fairly important to do, and that would be making sure that you've got equipment inspection on your list, and that depending upon your industry, you are aware of what the cadence should look like. So I'll tell you a quick story about somebody that we were working with, and they had old equipment that they were stored in their shop. Old equipment. A lot of new hires came in. Because there were a lot of new hires, this older equipment started to go into play. And they had an orchard ladder, which, for those of you who don't know what an orchard ladder is, it's actually more of a tripod, not appropriate for the painting industry, and a very real safety risk. But nobody had looked at their equipment for such a long time. Nobody knew that it was back there, went out into the field, somebody went onto it, that one tripod went into soft earth, guy fell off and broke his back. Um,
Mm.
right? Now, this company has a very solid return to work program. They're very engaged in their employees. This person always felt valued along the way. They put him right back to work. He's a crew leader now. Actually, I think he was a crew leader at the time, but this person wasn't a risk of lawsuits and further sort of legal action. But imagine if they were. And because you didn't take the time to inspect your equipment, they fell and now you got a lawsuit on your hand.
Mm.
Um, and I think sometimes the mistake that we make is that when we think about equipment inspection, we might default to, well, an excavator or a heavy duty piece of equipment. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about making sure that if you're a landscaper, you're looking at your shovels and that they are in good repair. Because if they're not and they break, they could cause somebody some real back damage. So, whatever industry you're in, you understand both the cadence of appropriate inspections and that even for those items that you might consider to be regular day-to-day objects, you're going through and testing them. Um, it's vital, right? It's just vital. Um, we also look at metrics, and so just to explain some of these, because this is I think uh, uh, these are numbers or metrics that a lot of our businesses probably are looking at and thinking about, but this is a formalized measurement. EMR is the experience modification rate. Many business owners, probably financial leaders, are more familiar with the term mod rate, right? Your mod rate dictates what your workers' comp is going to be for whatever time period it is. And your mod rate, depending upon the number of incidences that you have, can really get raised. And I know a lot of business owners who are sort of watching that number, waiting for that number to come down. Um, but we want to know what that is. The TRIR, which is the total recordable incident rate. Some people know it as total case incident rate or even OSHA incident rate. And this number is all of the incidences that occur. So if we go way back to that first slide, right, where we were looking at over 2 million in incidences, that's what you're looking at within your business and this number. So it's a trip and fall. It's somebody, nicking themselves with a box cutter. It's, dropping a pink can on your toe. Those kind of things are all coming into this number. Um, and then the DART number, which is days away, restricted or transferred. And this number can be pretty impacted, as I was mentioning before, about a job description. If you're including light duty information in a job description, you can work with this number because you've got somebody not away from their duties. Their duties include. So that's a very surface assessment and something that I would actively encourage you to do some research on to make sure that you handle that correctly. Don't take that one sentence as a, well, I heard on a call that I could do it this way. Do some research. Make sure that you're fulfilling what your state and local municipalities restrictions might be.
Catherine, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay there just because we had talked about the equipment inspections, and there were two
Oh
questions,
yeah.
and I didn't want to get away from it. The first question was, are inspections done by a specific person or entity, or do you feel like they should or are best done by the supervisors, foremans, managers?
Right. So, great question, and something that, depending upon the size of your organization, we would say you'd want to have somebody identified as being responsible for safety, you know, at the over $5 million level. Likely you're having one person. Lower than that, and I think, whether it's somebody who has part-time safety responsibilities or somebody who's got maybe a little bit more flexibility who could be doing some of that inspection stuff Now, if you're smaller than that, I simply want to have a sort of a cross reference to it. So I would say if it's you as a business owner and one crew leader, then business owner is inspecting the crew leader's equipment and the crew leader is inspecting the business owner's equipment so that you've just got a fresh or different pair of eyes on it. Um, and there's a lot that goes into that, right? Imagine being a crew leader and saying to a business owner, your equipment really needs to be replaced. You got to have some confidence to do that, but it's about safety. And so, yeah, um,
Sure.
that answer that well, do you think is were you looking
Yeah.
for some? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. The last one was if you're working with subcontractors, are you responsible as the general contractor or the site manager for monitoring their equipment?
So and what we coach to is we want to know that the subcontractors are operating with the safety practices that we think are important in the business. So yeah, I'm suggesting with the businesses that we work with and who work with subcontractors that they train them on the appropriate safety measures for their industry and that they are doing the evaluation. Um, I mean, I I'm I depending upon the state, there's different, I guess not obligations. That's the word I'm looking for. There's different obligations that you have depending upon the state. But I know of states where businesses are carrying workers' comp and other insurance liabilities for their subcontractors. And I mean, you would have to do that as a common business practice. It would be smart, right? Um, so if I'm paying for that, I don't want to rely on their analysis of a job site or equipment. I'm going to make sure that I'm handling that.
Hmm, got it. Great. I just want to make sure I got those in close to the when we were talking about the equipment. So those are great
Sure,
questions. Thanks, everyone.
sure, sure. Um, uh, the last thing I want to make sure that we are hitting here is the stop work authority. Uh, this is something that we feel so strongly about. Uh, every single person on a job site, whether you're a brand new apprentice and today is your first day, or a seasoned employee that's been the best friend of the owner for years and years and years. Everybody, everybody should have the ability to say, I need this job to stop because there's something going on that doesn't feel right, is going against our safety principles. Um, whatever the case may be, we need to ensure that we've given people not only the permission, but the encouragement to stop work. And so when we think about this from a certification process, right? When we think about how do you go about making sure that this is happening? We're looking for some clues, right? When we go onto the job site or we're talking about this with our business owners. We want to see that it is being hit in orientation, that orientation and safety training, people are given permission from the outset to stop work. We want to hear that it's being discussed at safety huddles. We want to make sure that it is on safety agendas. That in the early certification, we are looking for a roster of topics that you hit throughout the course of the year when you're talking about safety with your team. And we want to see that it's there, and we want to look at meeting notes and see that it's been discussed. Probably the biggest and most impactful thing that you can be doing as far as stop work authority is concerned um, is to make sure that you are celebrating it when it happens. So if you've got a brand new employee and they say, hey, listen, I just don't know that we're doing the right thing with the ladders here. I think we need to stop and have a conversation around it. You have to model good behavior. You have to not be frustrated by this by the fact that you're stopping production. You have to like thank that person for being as observant as they were. And you need to make sure that you're discussing that with everybody that's on the job site. the most successful companies that I know of who handle safety the best, they celebrate these things at company meetings. They go up there and they say, in the last quarter, we stopped work 4 times. And they give everybody a round of applause for doing that because that's the worst thing about safety. The worst thing about safety is that you don't know when it's working. You don't know. And so they're celebrating the fact that people have stopped jobs. Gosh, I shouldn't say that's the worst thing. I should say that's the best thing. That's the best thing about safety, right? You don't know when it's working because people are getting hurt. And so they're celebrating um, the fact that they stopped the job 4 times because the assumption is they had an impact on 4 people's lives or 8 people's lives on that day because they found a safety problem and they corrected it. Um, so when we think about that stop work authority, making sure that it is living and happening and that anybody can do it, it'll make your business better. And I think, every once in a while I get a sort of a, maybe it's a frowny face. I get a like, yeah, like I don't know that I can do that. I don't have enough people working as it is. And so if I stop an entire job, like I'm gonna lose money. And my response to that is, you're gonna not stop a job and somebody's gonna get hurt and you're gonna lose a lot more. You could lose your
Mm,
business, right?
mhm.
Think about that guy who fell off of the orchard ladder. That could have been a real problem. So I don't know if it's money that we're worried about, we could lose a lot. Um, Last but not least is this plan to sustain the safety culture. Because as I said, this level 2 is about the culture. It's about making sure that everybody in your organization is aware of it. And um, as I said before, this is not something that is limited to the field. And so when we think about a plan to sustain, is your management team involved? Are they having the right conversations? Does your salesperson walk the walk? If this person is going onto a construction site and it's a hard hat area, are they wearing a hard hat? And I had a conversation with a client who had a salesperson who was regularly showing up at job sites in flip flops. Flip flops, right? That person is not living the safety culture. And you got to wonder if they're comfortable with that. Are they informed? Are they informed? And so again, back to, we want to make sure that people understand what safety looks like. It's the office team actually going through some of that training to understand that you can't go onto a job site with flip-flops on. Um, so I think, one of the reasons we understand that it's safety matters. It matters and it's everybody's job. And so when we think about this as a consulting organization, I mean, come on, we're a consulting group, right? We we are a consulting group and we're saying we feel powerfully enough about this that we're going to have you work through this. Um, but we're not. We're a coaching group, which means that we work alongside of the people. We want to be partners in what's happening in their business. And we know that safety matters. We know that it's going to help a business become better, more financially secure, avoid future problems. So um, it's vital. It's vital.
Catherine, this is
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah. I got a lot of passions around it, that's for sure.
This is great because I was going to say, first and foremost, we've already had some awesome questions. So I
Okay,
wanted to
good.
just point out that if we have more questions, please dive in. I know, Catherine, we've gotten to the awesome ones that we already had. So I'm going to give everybody a moment if they have more questions to dive into the chat and ask them. I actually had a question myself because I thought when we were prepping for this, I saw something really interesting in some of the documentation, and that was the bigger your business gets, the harder it is to implement a safety plan. So here's my question. Let's say you are a business that either you didn't have a safety plan that you're super happy with at this moment, or you didn't have one at all, or whatever the case may be. Let's say you already are a growing company that has scaled up and you haven't done that heavy lifting yet, albeit we know it's harder to do it once you're there. What would you suggest for a company that may have gotten a lot further and larger, but don't have the safety plan that, yes, was much easier to implement when they were smaller? Now that they're larger, what's the best approach to kind of make it as easy as possible, I guess?
Right, right. And part of this is pulling resources. So part of this is, I would say to that business owner, if they're scaled, then they likely have some people in the office. And I would say, let's get somebody in the office and carve out some time each week where they are working off of a list of things that they need to pull together. So they need to make sure that there's an appropriate safety training in somebody's orientation. They need to make sure that they've got their data sheets in the right place and that there's good access to them. So I look at this, it's like eating an elephant, right? How do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. So, creating an action plan and getting it offloaded off of somebody who's a field leader and off of somebody who is a business owner and onto somebody's plate who you can then hold accountable to it. So 2 hours a week, I want you to focus on getting this together. No more than 2 hours a week. We're going to meet every week and you're going to tell me what your status is. We think that creating a plan from nothing should probably take somebody, I mean, depending upon the information that you've already got readily available, maybe your resources with your insurance company, if anybody's with a captive, you know how rich captives can be with safety information. Should take anywhere from, maybe 18 to 24 hours. So we're talking a stretch of weeks. I don't want it to be too labor intensive because I don't want to lose the intensiveness around it. So that's why I say let's start with a couple of hours each week. If you're seeing that the person can handle that and you want to up it, make it 4 hours a week and you can accelerate it. But that's where I would go. I don't want the business owner thinking about it. To be clear, I want the business owner focused on it. I don't want them doing the work of it. I want that onto somebody else's plate so that you can hold them accountable.
Perfect. And I know somebody had asked, I think it was Dan in the chat, and we provided some links. There was some about, is there, how do we integrate CompanyCam into documenting safety meetings? And we do have YouTube videos and our classes that will dive way more into the ins and outs of some of those. But I just want to point out that for the premium users on CompanyCam, we do have community checklists that are created by industry experts. That includes safety checklists that you can grab and use for your team. Here was another question. Are there any low cost or free safety courses or course material for very small, say less than 20 employees, construction related companies? This person says they're an admin for a custom trim and carpentry company and says our guys work on various job sites, mostly with saws, nail guns, and hammers. So low cost or free safety course material for small, less than 20 employee companies.
There's a couple places I would have somebody look. First would be, check with your insurance company. Depending upon the kind of insurance company that you have, they will often have some resources for you. Also check with your state. Again, depending upon the state, there are often a lot of resources available with your state OSHA program. So Cal OSHA, whatever your state OSHA program is. The other thing would be, there's a lot of YouTube stuff out there. You want to be a little careful that you're not getting something that's either outdated or doesn't match your particular state's safety requirements. But there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that you can find. And gosh, I always think of that as being the first place I want to go to when I need a video for something. Because if you're thinking it, somebody's done it.
Well, that's the truth.
Yeah, right. Sometimes that can be a little scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's a great tip about just checking because the ease of creating a video you could have things that are and are not maybe necessarily accurate. So that's a great
Right,
point
right.
about
You
check.
do need to verify
Yeah.
both sort of date because safety things get updated so quickly and so often.
Yeah.
And then against your state.
Well, I don't see any more questions at the moment. Catherine, this has been fantastic. On the screen, you're going to see, if you do have questions or comments or looking for safety resources, info at nolancg.com. And I'll remind everybody once again to check out the Good Contractor podcast that I host with Company Cam CEO Luke Hansen. The Good Contractor podcast is on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And there was a link in the chat as well. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to do this and always happy to talk safety.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great week.
Thanks very much.